Welcome to the Purpose Chasers podcast, where adversity meets ambition and setbacks become setups for something greater. I'm your host, Mark Crandall. After walking away from a $5.1 million construction sale, enduring loss, betrayal, a season of darkness, and a pile of financial devastation, I came back to the one thing I can't shake, helping people live on purpose. This podcast isn't about chasing dollars, it's about chasing calling. Every week, we shine light on creators, entrepreneurs, and artists who refuse to quit. People who kept moving forward when life told them to sit down. If you've ever been knocked down, counted out, or told no, you're in the right place. Because here, we turn pain into power and purpose into impact. Let's dive into this week's episode.
That's great. I wanted to bring you on to talk about the difference between a business and a company and defining how most individuals that start a business, they end up becoming employees of themselves, and they don't build the systems around themselves so that they can have a company, which is something which will work whether they are there or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll back up to, I want to address a couple things. The opportuneur versus entrepreneur nuance. That it took me a while before I realized that, and I use the word entrepreneur also as somebody who like starts and manages and runs a company, right? Like through a lot of trial and error and realization, I realized that I'm really a bad manager of things. Like I understand what has to go into it, but I'm not the guy. I have that startup entrepreneur gene, which is I'm really good at getting something going, at getting something off the ground and spinning a million plates at once in order to get it to have some traction. And then the minute it has traction, I don't know if I just get bored or if it's just not in my wheelhouse to just manage and keep something on the rails. I'm always looking for something new. I'm always looking for out of the box ideas, and I'm trying to capitalize on those. And those are really detrimental to running a business or to running a company, I guess I should say, and we'll talk about kind of the difference between those. But it was actually hard for me to admit to myself, I'm not a good entrepreneur, but I'm really good at finding and spotting opportunities and thinking of different ways to capitalize on those. And sometimes those do then end up becoming a real company, which is one of the things I'm working on now with another venture. But I think this comes to the very first most important aspect of entrepreneurship is knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and being brutally honest. Because I wish, like, if I could wave a magic wand, I would say, like, I wish I was great at at actually running companies, because I would probably be 100 times wealthier than I am today, because I've got, the ability to stick with something and see it through. I've had a lot of things that started up and had some success, but then kind of fell by the wayside because I was just a bad manager of it. And now, because I realize that, one of the things I do is I look for collaborations and partnerships and ways that I can just bring my specific skill set to the table while somebody else runs the areas that I'm really bad at. And what I'm bad at is operations, and I'm bad at corporate finance, and I'm bad at what else is it? I'm really good at growth and marketing and customer service and, the vision of the company. And this kind of like, by the way, I'll rabbit trail on a bunch of like thoughts that'll be disparate, but I'll connect them all. I read this book years ago that changed my life, which was called Rocket Fuel. And Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman and what is his name? I had him on my podcast, the co-author. It escapes me right now, but it's all about when you take this ADD visionary creator who's he's got a great vision, but lack of follow up and follow through and process driven. And you find somebody who is good at that, which he calls an integrator, or that person who's good at taking somebody's mess and organizing it and making sure it stays on track, that those two combine like rocket fuel. And I just remember for the first time, I was like, oh my God, I'm not broken. Like, I'm not a incomplete entrepreneur. I'm actually just one critical piece of the puzzle. And the entire problem can be solved by just finding that person or people who do bring the skill sets that I lack. So just becoming really self-aware and okay with admitting where I suck is one of the most powerful things you can do as an entrepreneur. When it comes to one of the other questions you talked about, like building a business versus a company, as well as, if you ever have the desire to sell something, I'll address those two. So a business can be anything, right? A business is an entity that's making money, whether it's a sole proprietorship, whether you're a subcontractor, you're working for yourself as a subcontractor, and that's your business. I'm a roofing subcontractor. That's my business. Or I'm an employee if I work for somebody else, or maybe I'm the contractor and I am in it. Maybe I'm even roofing with the guys and I'm doing all this other stuff. That's a business. But a company really is, it's an entity that runs itself through the people, and it's not totally dependent on that individual. Like Robert Kiyosaki talks so much about in the Rich Dad Poor Dad, those quadrants. There's the employee, then the self-employed. You're still doing all the work. If you don't show up, nobody gets paid. Then there's the business or the company, and then you're an investor. And I still am self-employed in my consulting practice, right? So I have not outsourced my consulting. I don't have other people, coaches and consultants underneath me who are working with clients, teaching my method, right? Like that's not something I've done. I still just work one-on-one with clients that I bring into my world, but that's okay because I also have interest in companies and other assets that make me money. And as an example, there's an e-commerce business that I'm building right now. And because I was so self-aware that because I tried one and failed because I tried to do everything myself. I was like, I'm not getting into that trap again because I know me and I'll screw it up. I'll get it off the ground, but then I'll run it into the ground. So I sat on this one idea that I had for about 3 years until a couple of friends of mine came along who had the complementary skill sets, and they had the seedlings of an idea that just perfectly worked with the idea that I had, which I said, well, here's what I would recommend. And then I got 33% of the company for really just saying, look, I'm going to spearhead the vision, the marketing. I'll still kind of be I don't know if I'll be the CEO, but I'm kind of the chief visionary officer, if you would, and chief marketing officer there. But it was very important that I waited for somebody else who could complement me to put in the systems, to put in the procedures, to work with the other employees and contractors that we have, because I can work with them a little bit, but I'm not a good manager. And that's now what I look to do is I look to leverage other people to fill in those skill gaps that I have. And then lastly, among those questions you asked about, I think you heard me say it one time because you echoed it back, which was build a business you would want to buy. And I got that from my friend Vinny Fisher, who I don't know if you've ever come across Vinny, but he's the owner of fullyaccountable.com. It's a outsourced CFO business. And when I had built this first e-com business, and I told him, I was like, look, I'm building this with the intention of selling it. And because I think it's a very sellable brand. And he said, let me give you some advice. Don't build a business that you want to sell, build a business that you would want to buy. And right, the nuance is really, it's small, but it's really impactful when you go, wait a minute, like what kind of business would I want to buy? Well, I would ideally want to buy something that is well-run, has good SOPs, that the owner doesn't need to be there every day, that it has great systems and procedures, and it's just a well-oiled machine. Now, that's the business I would want to buy. So if you build a business, you might never sell it. But if you build a business that you would want to buy eventually down the road, you're either going to end up running that business anyway, or you'll be able to sell it for a lot more. And by removing the idea that one of these days I'm going to sell this business, it allows you to be more fully committed to it. And otherwise you got one foot out the door and you'll shortcut things going, well, I'm going to sell this thing anyway. I'm just going to put lipstick on a pig and then hope somebody comes and buys it. But if you've ever tried to sell a business, you get into due diligence and people wipe that lipstick off real quick and they see, you got a pig on your hands. And personally, as a guy who likes to, acquire businesses and assets, I love it when an entrepreneurs put lipstick on a pig, because I'll come in and wipe that lipstick off and then I'll tear them apart on the valuation and I'll say, no, I'm not going to pay you this. Like, I'm going to pay you a lot less because this is not well run. This doesn't have this, and this. So there's my soapbox long answer to your intro questions. Hopefully that helpful.
Man, nothing you say is soapbox to me. I mean, I'm a student, as you know, as all the heart center tradesmen that are listening to this episode. Like, I nerd out on this. I love this. And so I want to ask you this while giving you some disclaimer. And I know that you're really, really in tune with marketing and, you know, marketing efforts of other players. I know you do a lot of competition research, and whether you view them as competition or not, I just know that you do a lot of that analysis because you're a nerd like me.
100%.
And I am so proud
nerd.
So there's this thing that I've experienced, and I actually lost a dear friend of mine in this shuffle. He, you know, overdosed and died, and you know, after building a $10 million roofing company, and in just over a year, he got caught in this shuffle. And it still is the philosophy that if a business, like if the trades are struggling, the answer, whether it's systems or whatever it is, these individuals in the trades, whether it's a roofing company, an HVAC company, are being sold the idea that what they need to do to fix everything that's going on is increase the revenue. So they're sold lead generation, Facebook ads, YouTube ads.
Oh, they say sales solves every problem, right? No, not true.
No. And what I've watched with, what I watched with my friend Clyde is, and, what I experienced with Josh, the man who I became, co-owners of Energy Shield with, is that when the lead generation was increased, there were no systems put in place to truly handle the influx of work and the cash flow issues that came into play. And there wasn't the staff, and then they were having staff problems, and then, ways that they were trying to deal with the internal struggles in the business and in themselves, but they were getting flashy. So they were buying Rolexes or flying first class here because that's what their mentors were doing. Mm-hmm. So what's your take on that? And I know kind of the through line we're going to get
more specifically my take, because there was a couple things to unpack there. So what's my take on which more specifically?
Well, if you were a business owner and you owned a roofing company, as an example, and you wanted to grow your roofing company, what would be the starting point that you would say that they should start with? And, knowing that they're being sold lead generation, just sell more roofs, increase your revenue, and everything will be fine. What are your thoughts on that methodology?
So I think it depends on where the person is, because we all go through different stages, right? Like if you're just starting off, well, you need revenue, right? And then revenue funds the other stuff. But like in early days, revenue is the most important thing. It's more important than business cards. It's more important than a website. It's more like in the very early stages, you need to just go sell something and then sell something else to where you can just use that money to build the systems, right? So they work really hand in hand. Oftentimes it starts though with revenue, and the smart entrepreneur takes that revenue and invests in the systems. They do not buy any luxuries for themselves. They do not buy things that are fun. They do not.
I just saw you twitch a little bit when you said that. Your neck twitched.
Exactly, right? They don't buy they don't go buy the new Herman Miller Aeron chair for their office. They don't do that stuff. They keep it lean and mean, and they look at revenue as a funding source for the systems in their business that they need to grow. And oftentimes we don't do that. We start to go like just revenue. And eventually once I hit this certain revenue, I can relax and then I'll build the systems. But that never happens, because by the time you hit certain revenue, the last thing you can do is relax, because you don't have the systems. And then you end up growing yourself to death because things fall apart. And when they start to fall apart, you get into this negative, like this death spiral, because you sold too much, and then you can't you can't deliver on the promises at a high level, and then you start to piss off some customers, and then you lose that revenue, and then those customers talk bad about you, and they get on Angie's List or Yelp or whatever, and they start giving you negative reviews, and now it's harder to get customers. And it all would have happened better maybe if you had better customer service, or you had better systems in place to get the stuff done that you needed to get done. And I've seen this happen a lot. It's happened to me where it's like, yeah, I grew too fast, and now I'm like, oh crap, I don't know how to handle this. So in the early days, yes, focus on revenue early, but then those are designed to fund the systems and procedures and the people, et cetera, that you need. As you get more into adolescence and whatnot, I believe that there starts to become a little bit more of a balance there, which is, now you've got some systems, now you got some people, now you've got some stuff like that, make them better. Like, how do I hire better? How do I pay more for people? How do I pay more for support systems, et cetera, that are going to really build that foundation of the business? And then once you've got a good foundation there, that's when you really start to build things that are going to generate the most amount of profit for you. And profit is not the same as revenue, because there's a lot of times then you can start to just cut certain extraneous expenses, or you can find ways to add, like, this is the first thing I always do when I come into a business is, let's not just try to add more people. Let's try to get more money out of the people we've got by better serving them in one way or another, through cross sells, through upsells, through continuity, through anything we can do. So new sales is the last thing I look at. Unfortunately, for most business owners and entrepreneurs, it's the first thing we all want. It's crack, right? Sales are crack. We're like, this feels so good to see the money coming in. But it's really important. And I may have to pause here for just a second because I'm about to sneeze. And if I don't,
Cody will edit it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Oh, because I'm sitting here, I'm talking, and I can feel the tickle in the nose.
You probably lost it.
I was going to get off track. So hopefully your audio guy can.
Yeah, Cody's good at what he does.
Cool. So sorry.
It's not outsourced work. I don't outsource my podcast.
Nice. I'm about to, right. I think I'm good. I'm about to bring it back, and I'll say, sorry, I just sneezed, and then you can cut it there. That's what I'll usually do. Sorry for the lack of train of thought. I just sneezed, but picking back up, I was, actually, where was I picking up? What was I saying? Okay. I know where we're at. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. I just had to sneeze. So hopefully that was taken out of the audio, but where sales comes in, and new sales, to me, it's always the last thing, because it's also, I believe, one of the easier things to start to generate. Yeah. Once your systems are in place, you've got salespeople, you've got support people, you've got ability to get things done. Now you can actually, and you've got profit. Now you can start to even make better deals to people. You can undercut your competition if you need to, or you can afford to wait for only the best types of customers and clients. And you can potentially even go upscale and increase your prices, because you have the ability to get work done in a better way. But I think it's important for us to know that for ourselves, we all want more dollars, in the bank. We all want more top line growth. And therefore, as entrepreneurs, we're very easy to sell by some of the people who come across and like, hey, let me just do lead gen for you. Hey, let me just do this, right? That's because that's what is the most attractive from the front end, but it's not what you make. It's really what you keep. And if you don't have the systems and things in place to keep that money you make, it's going to go away really quickly. In my consulting business, a few years ago, I wasn't practicing what I preach. And I realized that, especially let's say, I don't do a lot of advertising for my consulting business. A lot of it comes just organically and naturally through referrals and connections. But let's say, for instance, I have a client who might be paying me, my fees range, but let's just say $10,000 for a month's worth of work, right? Or for a project. And I would find myself just pocketing that and going and doing something else with it, and almost being greedy and not actually investing back in my business, because I was like, oh, I like this money. Like, I like to go do stuff with this money. I like to, put this in the stock market or somewhere else. And then I realized while I was looking back, and there were several systems and even people that I didn't have in place. And I realized that, like, what am I doing? I could actually take on more clients if I had more support and more systems, et cetera. And then I realized that, look, even at like world-class companies, and I'm talking typically bigger companies, but a lot of even small ones, world-class ones, if they have a 20% profit margin, are kicking ass. Once more, it depends on the model, but a lot of businesses, I mean, restaurants and grocery stores and things like this operate at like 5% margins. But a lot of businesses, if you have a 20% margin, you're doing really, really well as a business. And anything over that is awesome. Well, as a solo consultant, I was okay having a higher margin than that, but I said, look, I'm going to engineer a 60% profit margin no matter what, so that of every dollar that comes in from my consulting revenue, I'm going to invest 40% of it in my business. And that could be advertising, that could be hiring a new contractor, or doing something new to, installing a new system or something else. But I was forcing myself to actually spend that money on my business as opposed to just somewhere else, until I can afford to not do that. But if I didn't have the systems in the business I wanted, like, I was just being greedy and just trying to get more sales. And then I was working myself to death thinking, man, I'm so overwhelmed and frustrated, et cetera. So yeah, I became painfully aware of that just in my own business, even though I'd been preaching this to, clients for a long time.
And you nailed a point that is in the intro of the lead into you coming and talking to me, and that is that in the trades, individuals start out as employees. And I'm going to use the roofing analogy again, as I used earlier. They start out on the ground and they're picking up nails, and then they're lugging shingles up the ladder. Then they become an installer. Then they become the crew leader who's overseeing the entire crew. And there's no vision for much further than that in most companies. But they're noticing that the boss has a brand new truck and a really nice house, and he's going trips here and he's going trips there. And what you just talked about, the investing the 40% back into your business and modeling what you really want to create for all of your employees, and really create a career. It just struck me right in the heart. It's like, when your employee's driving a beat up truck and sometimes it breaks down, and you're in a brand new truck, and you're not working with that individual on getting them a new truck and getting them really, really enrolled in what you're doing. Yeah, that individual eventually is going to quit and go hang up his own shingle and start his own thing and start the whole dance, right? That's why there's, 60 roofing companies for every town, right? Is because of resentments.
Absolutely. And, that is one of those things, like, as an entrepreneur, you want to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But especially in the trades, you have to be really careful, because, I mean, you're typically blue collar, you come from that background, and then you're working with blue collar people, and maybe they're making 15, 20 bucks an hour. I don't really know what the roofing trade pays, like the lower end of the subcontractors, but I'm just throwing numbers out there. But resentment does foster, like you say, like, they see me doing this, they see me doing that. So two things, and I've got a good friend of mine who is he's one of my best friends that I grew up with, and he owns a painting contracting business. And he and I have talked about this, and he actually, he has a lot of money from his business, but then also he married well, and his wife has a lot of money. So they collectively have a lot of cash. But he says, I've had to maintain a degree of, I don't know what you call it, but just modesty in what I do, because I have seen that they'll do exactly what you said. They'll go like, oh, well, he's making all this money and he's kind of flashing it around. But so part one is I do think it's a good idea to maintain a degree of modesty if you're working with people who resentment can foster them to go, well, screw this guy, I'm going to go do it on my own. Right. That's one thing. But number two, one of the things he and I talked about, and he started to do, which I thought was really brilliant, is when he was connecting with his team and his employees, he made it a point to talk about his journey and to let them see the journeys and the struggles that he's gone through to get where he's at, because it fosters a degree of empathy in anybody. And it's really easy if you just meet somebody who looks like they have it all, you're like, you get jealous of what they've got. But if you really knew everything they had to do to get where they're at, you might not be so jealous, right? Like I've always said, be careful of admiring high performers and envying them, because chances are there's something really deep, dark, and ugly in their past that's gotten them to that point to be able to perform so high, to be able to push through when it's dark, because they've got a chip on their shoulder, or they've had to struggle through unbelievable obstacles in order to get there, and obstacles they wouldn't wish on their worst enemy, right? And they've come out harder than ever, because as they say, like the same fire that melts butter also hardens steel. And to be empathetic to the journey. So he makes it a point of, when they're shooting the shit or talking about stuff, he'll talk about the come up and the times where, man, when I started to do this on my own, et cetera, I almost didn't survive. And I had to take, like, I borrowed money and I thought I was going to lose it. And, and I bet my entire family's, life savings on this. My wife was like, man, if you screw this up, I'm divorcing you. And he would even dramatize it to the fact, like, to points where he would embellish. But what it did is it made them realize, like, oh crap, this guy didn't just fall into this nice new truck or this, that, and the other. Like, he's been a bare knuckle brawler to get here. And it creates a degree of respect that, had they not known that, it would be, like, had they not known that, they wouldn't have that same degree of respect. So letting people see the journey and to realize that it wasn't a cakewalk will help them kind of be like, all right, yeah, I'm not going to screw this guy over. Or even better, maybe I don't want to go out there and do this on my own, because this is a pain in the ass to actually run a business. And letting your contractors and whatnot know that, I think can be very insulating against some of these future issues. But I always thought that was an interesting dynamic.
It was golden. I'm not sure your friend's name, but I would love to have him. I would love to have him come on if you think it would be something he would be open to.
Yeah, I'll ask him.
I started in the painting. I started as a painter, and that's how I originally started. And the undertone of the trades is really, you're replaceable, right? And like,
Yeah.
There's another $15 an hour guy that's out there that will replace you. And that's not, I'm like getting emotional even thinking about it. I'm thinking about getting screamed at and like all the things that happen in the trades. And, what Josh and I have really been focused on, and what I've really been focused on in my consulting with the marketing is, building a company that I would want to work for, right?
Absolutely.
Like, not a business, you're not a painter, you're not a Toby, you're not no, like, let's create a vision for you to get to wherever it is that you want to get, and use this opportunity inside this organization to get you there. And really, I mean, maybe it's me nerding out as a therapist and now I'm going back to the trades or what have you, but like, I want to know what, Trevor, who's one of the installers that we have, like, what his 10-year plan is. Like, what's your goal? What's your vision?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you trying to do? How can we help you get there? And I don't think individuals that are in the trades don't have that mentality.
Yeah, no, most of them don't. And that's one of the things he struggled with too. I know is like, cause he's college educated with, real brilliant guy. He was an engineer, and he went back to help his brother who was a painting contractor, and he helped turn that business around, and, et cetera. But but yeah, and that's he's like, yeah, I try to give like some of my guys all the time the benefits of the doubt, that they're going to think a little bit, more about growth oriented mindset. And, it's unfortunate. A lot of people in the trades don't. Those who do end up becoming, business owners of their own. And it's just, I mean, that's actually not just the trades. That's every single business, right? There are the entrepreneurs. They're the ones who are like, yeah, I can do this. They're self-starters, and they take responsibility, and they want more. So they are willing to grow into that and realize that, if I don't have the business that I want, then I'm not yet the person that I need to be to run that business. And you have to realize that. You have to say that, if you don't have the business you deserve, it's because you don't deserve the business yet. So what do you have to do as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman to deserve that business? Well, chances are you need to get educated in something else. You need to learn this. You have to expand your horizons, and you have to get to the point where that is that you actually deserve the business you want. And that's kind of hard to come to grips with sometimes.
Yeah. And I don't know if we're going to learn a hard lesson from this, or if this is like the greatest idea we've ever had, but we implemented profit sharing for the employees. One of the first things that I said to Josh on one of our calls was, why are you guessing about bonuses that you're going to give the men? And, I know they're thinking all year, like, am I going to get a bonus? Am I going to get a bonus? Because I've been in that place. It's like, what if we were just to delegate a percentage of profit, to the employees, and they knew no matter how well the business does is how well they're going to get, compensated come Christmas. And, we dropped it on the men this year, and they were like, oh, wow, I've never heard of that. And
nice.
I'm excited. And we're going to actually share, projections and show them, what it looks like, and no secrets. And here's the whole fold.
I love that. I was, one of the things I was contemplating earlier this year, my friend, I don't know do you know who Cameron Harold is? You ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Cool. So Cameron was talking about this, and as we're talking,
actually the first plan I did in business was a vivid vision.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Cam was talking on Facebook, and as we're talking, I'm looking this up, where he said this. Okay, I'm gonna, and I thought this was a really interesting concept, but he talks about why he's against profit sharing. And this is only something I've started to think about, but he says, I'm just going to read, it's a short post, but he says, profit sharing is completely different than year-end bonuses too. I'm also against those, but here's why I don't like it. The short answer is most CEOs are not pushing for maximum profit. They're pushing for maximum revenue, maximum margin, maximum customer net profit score, maximum employee net promoter score, and max economic value of the entire company. Why push everyone to focus on profit when that's not what the CEO is doing, but no one thinks through it? He then talks about how one of the things that, I'm looking for where he actually explains this more, but he says, bonuses don't actually change people's behavior. Hire people who already work hard and deliver results, and then pay them fairly, or even more than fairly. So this is something I bet, like, I'm parroting this because I don't have a hardcore opinion on it, but it made me think. And, along those lines, it could be, find the best contractors and pay them top of the wage, and maybe even better, to where they know, look, you are getting the most that any other contractor will get, and I can take this away from you if you get fired. So at any moment, like, you drop the ball, I'm going to find somebody else and I'm going to pay them this wage. That gives them a consistency of higher earnings without hoping for a bonus. And I don't know if it's true or not. Do year-end bonuses and profit sharing, et cetera, are they too far away and too ambiguous to actually drive daily behavior? I don't know. But if I'm getting paid a higher rate than I should be, and then my peers, that's probably going to make me wake up and not be late for the office. So I'm not recommending this. I'm just posting it out there as one of the things that Cam said. I was like, that's really interesting. I never actually thought about it like that. And although you're already down that path, it may or may not be too late to actually go to them and just say, hey, listen, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a higher, maybe maybe you pay your guys hourly, or I don't know how, but would you rather have a higher hourly wage, or would you rather have a profit share or bonus quarterly or at the end of the year or whatever, and maybe find out from them? I don't know. As I said, I don't have an answer. It's just something I have a
team meeting set in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to ask, because I'm open. We're trying to, we're trying to gauge it and trying to figure out, what they've been doing and fix. And obviously I'm system minded and I nerd out on that. So I'm trying to fix all of the brokenness, which it's been really fly by night, just handing stacks of cash.
Yeah.
Let me ask you off the record, Cody, just so you know, this is not in the recording. Do you have a hard stop right now?
I do not.
Okay. Well, I want to do one more transition and then we'll wrap.
Cool.
I just want to respect your time also.
I appreciate it.
Even though you didn't respect mine. I'm just kidding.
Good point. Touche.
You're further down the path than me.
Touche. Love it.
So Brad, I have one more question for you, which, I mean, I think you know enough about me to know that one question is going to be very loaded. And the one question is, if you were like, I want to take Energy Shield of the Lakes region, the roofing company that I'm partnered in as a whole. If you were looking at, Energy Shield or other roofing companies as an acquisition, can you, and I want to say briefly, because I know you're a nerd like me, so I know you have a lot of processes that go into place when I'm about to ask this question, but can you walk me and the heart-centered tradesmen, particularly those that are running their own companies right now, listening to this podcast, what would you be looking for to acquire, a trades company, specifically Energy Shield? Like, what would you want to know and what questions would you ask? And how long is that process?
So there's two ways for me to look at this. Like, if it was me, like if we were actually talking about Brad Costanzo, I'm what's called a financial buyer. I would be what's called a financial buyer in the trades business. There's a difference. Like when you go to sell your business, it's typically to a financial buyer or to a strategic buyer. So a strategic buyer would be if I had Costanzo Roofing and I wanted to buy your business because it's a strategic fit. Like you do something or you have a piece of the market, like I'm expanding my business. So now the things I'm going to look for in that as a strategic buyer are going to be different than what I'm going to look for as a financial buyer. And let me cover the strategic one first. So if you're going to sell your business, you're typically, you probably have a better chance, especially if it's a healthy business, right? To sell it to a strategic buyer than a financial one, because the strategic one knows that 1 + 1 could equal 3 for them, because maybe you have synergies they don't, or maybe they have, maybe they do another service you don't. And then by buying this business, they can access the customer list, they can cross-sell stuff, and there's an immediate path to cash and profitability that might not exist on its own, right? That's the synergy of a strategic buyer. And that might be a competitor, or that might be another company in another city or geographic location who does what you do. They're not competitive, but they just want to expand their footprint geographically without having to start up something new. And you can typically extract higher sale price out of a strategic buyer. There's less of them out there, but they already understand the business. So the due diligence process and how long it would take would probably be a lot shorter, because if I already had Costanzo Roofing, I'm going to come in there and I'm going to know what to look for because I know how to run this business. I know nothing about the roofing business personally. So as a financial buyer, I'm going to look for a handful of things. I'm going to look for how well run is it? Like, I'm going to look at the basic numbers. What's the revenue? What's the profitability? What's the margins? Where are the expenses, et cetera? I'm going to look at for what expenses are extraneous that I can cut. Where has the owner been paying himself, BS expenses just to kind of cut down on taxes and to run things through the business, because I'm going to adjust the financials. And I'm going to try to get the best price or terms that I can out of this business so that I can have the highest cash on cash or internal rate of return for my dollars invested. I'm also going to make sure that if I'm buying your business, if you're the operator, like owner operator of it, like how long can I keep you around for so you don't disappear? Can I create an earnout position? Like, so let's say I buy your business for $1 million, but I give you only $700,000 right now through combination of cash or debt. And then that other $300,000, hey, you've got to earn that out over the next couple, 2 years or longer if I can, right? Like I want to lock that owner in so that they're running the business I just bought, because I don't want to run it. and I don't have the capability to run it. The other thing I might look for is if you're the owner of the business, like the CEO, do you have a number two in place who's actually responsible for all the operations? Now, this is a beautiful area that, because I can buy you out, you can kind of leave, and I can promote your number two to number one, and they can run the business for me. So if I'm in your shoes and I have the idea to exit someday, I'm going to think about doing this both to a strategic and a financial buyer. I'm going to try to cover both bases. And I'm also going to try to have a really solid number two in place who could run the business without me. In fact, it'd be even better if they are running the business without you and you're just kind of staying in the strategic role, because if you can be replaced, then you can be bought a lot easier. And somebody will be like, oh, wow. And chances are you'll get a lot more cash up front as the owner, because they don't need you as much. They can just buy you out and you can walk away, because they can, and they can immediately promote your number two. So, and I don't know if it makes sense to, if you have a number two who's doing that, to even let them know, like, listen, one of these days I may sell this. And if I sell this, that doesn't mean you're out of a job. That means that you get promoted to the president, not necessarily the owner, but the president. And these are some of the things I'm going to look for those, but I'm going to look for, I'm also going to look for opportunities. Now, this is me specifically, because it doesn't matter what business it is. I understand how to grow a business using just first principles of marketing and sales and, et cetera. So I'm going to look for low hanging fruit. Like, are you advertising? No? Well, maybe you should. Do you have a customer review strategy? Do you have a referral program? Do you have things in place that if they were in place, you'd be more profitable, that I know how to put into place? So those are good. Like I've actually never bought a business that is well run and perfect. Like I actually like to look for distressed owners, not necessarily a distressed business, but a distressed owner, somebody who's frustrated and frazzled and doesn't know what to do. And they're leaving a ton of money on the table just because they don't have the time in the day. Because if I come in and I just, twist a few knobs that I know how to twist that they don't, I may be able to add another 10 or 20% of profitability to the business fairly quickly. I love those because I can underpay and then get my value out later on. But if you're the owner of the business, you want to make sure that you're the one who's turned all those valves and switches and knobs and made yourself, hey, we've got good revenue. We've got great profitability percentage. We've got great systems and procedures and employee onboarding and retention and all that other stuff, so that when somebody comes, I'm handing them a well-run machine as opposed to a lemon. So that's probably what I would say.
It's such a great answer. And it really, I was talking to a friend of mine last week, and, I'm getting ready to move back to New Hampshire. So I'm doing my connecting back with some players. And I was talking to him, and I asked him, I was like, Doug, when are you going to retire? And he's like, Mark, I'm over 60 years old and I'm still swinging a hammer. I have no retirement. I just started to think about and really become so grateful for the mentors and, the education and all the nerding out that I do on my laptop that most people don't know that you can do, aren't willing to research. So I have a lot of gratitude from this episode, that I am learning this so new into, entrepreneurship and business. Brad, thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
your time, man. And obviously if anyone is wanting to, to learn more about what Brad does, Brad, do you want to share your podcast and all your things, which will also be in the show notes?
Yeah. So my podcast is called Bacon Wrapped Business. You can find it on all of the podcast apps, and you can go to baconwrappedbusiness.com.
And it's phenomenal. I
just
want to put that out there. It is phenomenal.
Thank you. One of the things I'm proud about my podcast is, it's a very selfish podcast, and it is very focused on what I want to learn about and who I want to talk to. And it's about everything from, marketing to fundraising to acquisitions and creative deal making to licensing and you name it. Like there's no business topic or even mindset topic off, off limits. And I don't just have people on the show who are looking to promote things. Like I literally, if they're on the show, it's because they have knowledge that I want, like either for my business or for something, for one of my clients, or I'm just really curious about it because it's something I might not know a lot about, right? Like I didn't know a lot about equity crowdfunding, and I had a couple experts, on that. And so it causes me to ask questions that I really want the answers to. And I've got a lot of good feedback saying, man, those are some really good questions. Like, that's what I wanted to know. I was like, yeah, it's just because like I wouldn't have them on my show if I wouldn't spend an hour having coffee or beer with them, trying to pick their brain and or building a relationship with them that that I want to have for one reason or another. So it's I can't say you'll learn any one thing, but you'll learn a lot of different things. And I've been doing it for about 6.5 years, and it's been one of the single best things I've ever done in my career. You can also find more about me just at bradcostanzo.com and some of the things I'm in. But yeah, I look for good acquisitions. I'm starting up I'm starting up another e-commerce marketplace right now. And I love consulting with business owners on how to, just really simplify the growth of their business without a lot of stress, overwhelm, or complexity.
Mic drop. Brad, thank you so much for your time, man. I'm so grateful for you, and also the new vision of, my podcast. I've been podcasting for about 4.5 years. This is my third podcast, and it's the first time that I don't care what your name is or whose names we can drop. We did no name dropping, maybe one. You dropped Cameron, but like, I want you on my podcast because you have knowledge that I want to give back to my audience, not so you can promote your new book or your new thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just so over that space. And so thank you, man, for like, this is like I shared with you, this first interview I've done in a while and I've done a lot, is super excited, and I nerded out. And my favorite clip of your podcast, which is also on the Bacon Wrap Business podcast, the Facebook page, is the reporter who goes after the evangelical.
Oh, wasn't that great?
The private chat.
That was so good. So good.
Let me just take a moment to pray.
Yeah. It was so funny.
Brad, thank you so much for your time, man. I'm very, very grateful for it.
My pleasure, brother.
Thanks for tuning in to the Purpose Chasers podcast. If today's episode hit home, don't just listen, engage. Follow me on Spotify, drop a review, and join the conversation over on YouTube at The Purpose Chasers or on Instagram at Organic Nerdword. This is more than a podcast, it's a movement. And if you're here, you're already part of it. Remember, no amount of darkness can keep someone who's been called. So keep chasing, keep building, and keep standing in your purpose. I'm Mark Crandall, signing off until next time. Let's get it.